What is up, guys? Luke here, back with a new series on the quest to make and keep you strong. This is the Hidden Knowledge interview series, where I interview people with little known but powerful knowledge and techniques that will help you improve yourself and your life. Our first installment is my interview with Garrett Daun, Radical Life Innovation Consultant and founder of the Command Z Academy, a center for how to undo mental conditioning that is stopping you from living the life of your own choosing. He is a leading practitioner in a series of yogic teachings called The Radical Undoing, started by Dr. Christopher Hyatt, a leading authority in how to undo bodily tensions to make people break free of mental limitations and take control of their lives. We cover some great ground in this interview. We talk about how to approach self-development in a way that will actually lead to breakthrough and permanent change, Garrett's own evolution and how these techniques have helped him in his own life, his 3-step philosophy for how to live a purposeful, fulfilling, and enjoyable life, and we end off with some exercises that you can start doing today to get this process started for you. We start off the interview with his take on how to approach improving yourself and digest information, including self-help material, which is something I've seen to be a huge sticking point for people. Let's go.
So I appreciate you taking the time to talk. I just wanted to start off and ask you this question about what advice would you give to someone that is, say, not satisfied with their life, kind of roaming around social media or the internet in general and seeing a lot of different self-help courses and gurus kind of talking about a lot of things to improve your life, but they're overwhelmed. They don't really know what to do or, how to get started. What piece of advice would you give to someone like that?
Yeah, well, you can end up going down a long, winding road of futility in the world of seeking. It's not all bad, but it would be nice at the very beginning to have some principles and ground rules for yourself so that you know why you're doing what you're doing, and then you can start to assess different approaches and systems and whatever you find, or teachers or whatever, or advice that you find out there by measuring against whatever your mission is. So the very first thing you would need to do is have some kind of mission, even if you just invent one. And I don't mean by that like the typical stuff you hear now about purpose and all that. I don't believe there's a purpose for our lives beyond your life itself and the constant unfolding of that life in its entirety is itself the purpose. So I don't think we have to find some mystical purpose that's been hidden from us. Our life is already that, but you have to at least have a mission. And when you have a mission, then you can measure every situation in terms of, does it help further that mission or not? So even if the mission was to go to the store across this river to a store to buy a candy bar, then I know that when I'm walking across and some guy wants to come and talk to me for an hour, that I have to say, no, not right now, because I have something else going on. So I'm going to head over and accomplish that mission. So knowing what it is you want to accomplish first and foremost then will help you dispense with a bunch of stuff that's not going to get you there.
Right.
So that would be the main thing, is to know what it is you want to do. And that can even be, I want to feel better, or it can be, I want to go through my day without being lost in thoughts all day long.
Okay.
Or I want to enjoy each day of my life, even when there's challenges,
Right.
So come up with a mission that makes sense to you, not a mission from somebody else's book or course or trying to live up to some set of standards.
Right.
But know what it is you want to accomplish, even if your mission is to find out what you'd really like to do. So then at least you can know, are my activities fitting into this or not?
Right. So searching for a mission, it can itself be a mission.
Yeah, exactly. The great negotiator, Jim Camp, he wrote a lot of books on negotiation. And one of his main tenets in teaching negotiation, he was a hostage negotiator and training hostage negotiators and also business negotiator. And in that, he said that the main thing that you need before you enter a negotiation is to know what your mission is going into it. And then that guides every response. It guides every action in the course of that negotiation.
Wow. Okay. That makes sense. When people feel a lot of, those typical negative feelings like confusion or, low self-esteem, low confidence, I'm sure that ties into a lot of that too, because if you don't have a purpose or a mission on how you're going to be gauging your actions, then you don't really know what to do. And then you start doubting yourself and then spirals from there.
Yeah. And it applies even to relationships. If you have a relationship with a woman, for example, and then if the only purpose of it is to just have a relationship and there's no actual mission together that's more important than just the relationship itself, which is kind of a nebulous thing, then and for a lot of people it's kids, let's say, raising kids. But when you have a mission that's greater than yourself and the other person, then you can say, okay, well, we have the rehearsal tonight for the play we're putting on together, so we're going to set aside these arguments for now because this is what we're working on. So you see, it actually can guide you through all these different situations where you'd otherwise get tripped up.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. It maybe stops the cycling of your mind, like the random thoughts that start to come in, and then the constant distractions that you get in the short term, and gives you that point of focus that you can use to guide your actions.
Yeah, and then you know who fits in your life and who doesn't, who's taking away from that mission, who's contributing to it.
Right.
And everything. And then from there, because you're going to have to figure out a way to sort through the mass of garbage that's on the personal development, self-help, spirituality, mysticism, whatever stuff you get interested in. And that's not to say don't explore stuff that you're interested in. Interest alone can be great and can take you a lot of places. Or synchronicity, if a book or coincidence, a book falls in your lap and suddenly it's like, man, this is exactly what I needed. Great. It doesn't matter what source it comes from, but you can't just go out and trust authorities without knowing what role they are there to play in your life and how they're going to further your mission, you know?
Right. So I guess the biggest thing would be just having conscious thought, having, kind of thinking for yourself in the sense of figuring out what you want and not following people blindly. But at the same time,
not just trying to live up to some other system, not trying to live up, because a lot of people end up doing that. Oh, I'm applying the Tony Robbins personal power or whatever. That's great, but for what? Are you just trying to live up to a standard that he set up, or is this your standard that you want to live up to? Because a lot of times those systems can make you feel less. They can make you feel diminished as a person if it doesn't work how it's promised to work, and you won't necessarily say, oh, this isn't for me, or this system or this teacher's a liar, or it doesn't work. You might think, oh, it works for everybody else, who also might be lying, but it works for everybody else, but it doesn't work for me. So unconsciously you're telling yourself, after you skip through a bunch of these systems, that you're no good. Something must be wrong with you, because it didn't work the way it said it was going to work.
A lot of people do fall into that trap where they start measuring themselves on standards that they didn't really choose themselves consciously, and they just they got some kind of reason in their mind that they need to be living up to these standards. Maybe it's through their parents or through some other social force, and they start judging themselves on that, and then they start maybe going for things that they don't actually want, and then that's probably where the confusion starts.
And part of the issue there is you hear a lot of these platitudes. You see them all over on social media that you create your reality by what you think about, which there's contexts in which I can explain that to be true, but there's also many, many contexts where that's absolutely not true. Like if that was 100% true, every plane would crash, because probably a majority of people have at least had a flash or are dwelling on the idea of a plane crash, when the plane is taking off, for example.
Right.
But that's the data on that is the opposite. Almost no planes crash. So, and then most people aren't thinking about a car crash, and yet there's a huge amount of car crashes. So those platitudes sound really nice, and people repeat them as if they're true, and then they kind of edit and filter their direct experiences to make believe that it's true. So with the radical undoing and the stuff that I teach, everything has to be physically verifiable in your own direct experience, in your own life, or I don't teach it.
Wow.
You have to be able to prove it to yourself, and then you arrive at principles through repeated experience. So you don't have a principle ahead of time and then try to make your experience fit into it, because often we have this what is it called, like cognitive bias or something like this. No, it's not that. It was something bias, but
like an emotional bias, maybe.
Yeah, where you'll only focus on or be aware of experiences and events that fit into your idea of how things are supposed to go. So then you'll ignore everything that proves that it's not true. But when your primary source of data and information is your direct experience, and then you reduce everything else to secondhand stories, including history, books, teachers, everything else, just stories compared to your direct experience. There's a chasm of distance between those two things: direct experience versus ideas and words and stories, secondhand information.
It's to start kind of believing on what you can actually live up to a conscious experience. So when you have a conscious experience of something, you can craft a belief by that. But then the stories that you hear and the things that you hear from hearsay is the idea not to fully believe those things, or be, I guess, questioning or skeptical of them.
Yeah, you'd have to test those in your direct experience. Like if I read a book about how to handle big waves while swimming or surfing or something,
Yeah.
it might give some strategies for how to handle big waves. But then there's the other thing, when you're actually in the water, like I remember being in Southern California and swimming when there was some pretty huge waves, not like on Point Break or whatever, but pretty big waves that were crushing. And I realized at first I was really struggling every time a wave would come just to swim through it and stuff. And then I realized I could go underneath the force of it and let my body be limp, and I would get tossed around, but I never got hurt at all. I never got slammed into the sand. So then I could just handle it for hours, no problem.
Yeah.
But when I was moving and keeping my body tense and trying to push against and control what was going on with force, then I was getting smashed, and my body was like, my back was bending against the way it's not supposed to bend and getting smashed into the ground. Right. So I could read a book about that, and the book might say, or a video or something might say, okay, you got to relax and loosen up in that when the wave is coming. But it's not real to me until I actually go out and feel the difference for myself.
Okay.
And then once I'm out there, I can go, okay, this is what they mean, and relax into the experience. So that can be useful. I'm not putting down the secondhand information, but I'm saying that it's in our nature that our primary source of data and information is here in this interface of direct experience with the body and the senses.
Gotcha.
And that's what we should favor in all of our considerations about what we know and about our experiences and everything.
So maybe the best way to go about self-improvement is to be able to digest information, but take it with a level of skepticism and actually go out and try everything that you learn. And once you experience whatever the experience is going to be from what you've been taught, then you can start to form your own opinion about it and actually put it into your consciousness, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. It's better to have one sentence from a book that you've actually tested and experienced than it is to read 30 books.
Gotcha. Nice.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll dive into Garrett's background and go through his evolution to see what got him to where he is today. Until then, do what makes you strong. Stop doing what makes you weak.